We like to talk about projection from the establishment and the left, that they often accuse others of that which they are guilty. Notably, you'll get a bunch of these people on the woke left who say that they, in fact, are racists and then accuse you of being a racist when you're actually not racist. You'll get a book like White Fragility where this woman, Robin DiAngelo, outright says she is a racist. And then the woke left are like, that's the person I'm going to follow, which seems to make no sense. And now we get CNN. CNN Business has launched an internal investigation into the treatment of female employees. Now, my friends, I'm a rational individual. I believe most of you are rational individuals. So I'll just say this. An investigation into their treatment of female employees should be viewed as a good thing because it shows that CNN actually cares. They don't want to be mistreating female employees, so they're going to preempt any potential accusations and just make sure they're doing the right thing. However, that's not how it works in the world of woke. In the world of woke, the way it works is that you're guilty until proven innocent, and that any attempt at expressing remorse or concern is proof of guilt. Wokeness is destroying the media. People are losing their minds. And because of the laziness of most of these news outlets, we're just getting Twitter articles. Twitter articles all day and night. Now, my friends, Twitter articles aren't that big of a deal, in my opinion, right? So some personality will make a statement on Twitter, and it's newsworthy because back in the day, we cared when someone of consequence would say something. Though they wouldn't say it all that often, you'd have to get the quote somewhere, publish in a paper, and then maybe get a controversy. Now anyone can just say anything on social media, and thus news outlets like CNN and others will write garbage articles about it. Case in point, the segment I just did previously about Joe Rogan, it's like a 10-second clip from like a 2 or 3 hour podcast, and it becomes major national news. Should it be? I don't even know at this point. I just know it's all hypocrisy and that media in this country is on fire and probably just a burnt, withered husk of charcoal at this point. But hey, so be it. I want to talk to you about CNN, but I'm going to give you a little preview into what we're going to get into in this segment, because it's not just about CNN's investigating themselves for the mistreatment of female employees. I have this article from Mediaite, an opinion piece. This week showed an obsession with popularity and fear of the woke mob is killing journalism. That's right, but it's doing more than that. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you this article from the Daily Mail. Jeopardy contestant, who some viewers thought was making a white supremacy okay sign, says he was simply showing how many times he won. Oh, geez. This is what you get. What do we do? I don't know, ban Twitter outright, shut down CNN. You can't do that. I mean, people are allowed to run their businesses even if they're morons, but this is what happens. And it's mostly CNN's fault. You know, these mainstream news outlets were so desperate for ratings, they chased the woke mob, and they decided to shift from doing real news, which was never really that lucrative, to just doing pandering rage bait trash. So now, this is the news you get. The reason why I highlight the Jeopardy thing in the context of CNN is that CNN launching this internal investigation is an admission of guilt to the woke left. The reason we have a story about the Jeopardy guy is because of outlets like CNN taking clearly bunk garbage stories and rumor from 4chan, turning it into news, and now convincing people all over the country the okay sign actually means white supremacy or something dumb. Great. Thanks, CNN, and thank you to the mainstream media. I don't want to single out CNN in this one. It was a variety of mainstream media news sources. I think the hilarious thing is that one of the outlets that propagated the okay sign myth was Fusion, for which I had once worked, and they're defunct now, and their trash lies persist, making everybody stupider. Great. Well, here's the story from Insider. CNN Business has launched an internal investigation into the treatment of female employees, they say. The investigation was prompted by the February departure of Annalyn Kurtz, a senior editor in the roughly 60-person newsroom. Two of the people said, CNN Business houses the cable network's digital coverage of markets, technology, and media. Media, huh? Isn't that Brian Stelter? The work environment assessment, as the inquiry is being called internally, is being conducted by HR employees at CNN's parent company, AT&T's Warner Media, a $34 billion business, including the Warner Bros. Film studio, Turner Sports, and HBO. CNN's HR and communications department folded into Warner Media as part of reorganization last year. Reorganization basically means they're shrinking. CNN's probably in serious trouble. A CNN spokesperson declined to comment. The assessment appears to be focused on workplace culture, not the behavior of an individual, according to two of the sources. Quote, I found there to be a lack of transparency in how to get promoted or how to appear on TV, said one, a female staffer. I get the feeling the company wants to keep as many people as possible at a low pay grade or stay in a certain box, and that has led to women not being supported. I love that leap in logic. People aren't getting, businesses don't want to pay people more money, so they hate women. CNN, you reap what you have sown. I'm loving it. There's a funny tweet going viral where some dude with a Nazi haircut says that not talking about politics is a great way to get Nazis in the workplace. The reason I say Nazi haircut is because the media once claimed that if you like shave the sides of your head, that you're apparently a Nazi or whatever. Sure, fine. Well, this guy has that haircut. And he says not talking about politics is a good way to get Nazis in the workplace. You know what, dude? Not talking about politics with your employees is a good way to get any zealot extremist in the workplace, notably these people. The problem for CNN and many other outlets, they encourage this. They go to people and they're like, this is what we want to do. This is what we want. This is good. And I love it. They're now going to be eaten alive from the inside out. You see, CNN, in their desperate attempt to stay afloat, pandering to the woke mob, pushing out ridiculous garbage stories, attracted a certain kind of individual. Woke zealots and narcissists, people of no skill or merit who demand to be on TV. I couldn't figure out how to get a raise or go on TV. CNN hates women. Excellent logic there. But what do you think is going to happen when you encourage this garbage article nonsense and you hire these people? I love it. It's like the Teen Vogue thing. Remember that? So this woman works for, I think she was working for Axios. Can't remember where she worked. But she was basically an unethical journalist who was like dating the guy in the Biden administration. She was supposed to be covering them and, whatever. She tries to get a job at Teen Vogue. Unfortunately for her, like 10 years ago, she made insensitive tweets. So the woke mob at Teen Vogue campaigned to get her fired. And then she got fired. I don't even know if she even got hired. They blocked her from getting hired. Teen Vogue ended up losing like a 7-figure ad deal because of it. Teen Vogue, you hired cultists. What makes you think you will be immune from them taking over your business? It's great. You will now be eaten alive from the inside out. Sorry, CNN, I'm not going to shed a tear for you. They're going to say, CNN Business is led by General Manager Jason Farkas, who has 6 direct reports, 3 men and 3 women, according to a person familiar with the organization structure. The department is part of CNN Digital, which is run by Senior Vice President Meredith Artley, who reports to Andrew Morse, the chief. I don't care about that. At a CNN Business Ask Me Anything call on April 20th, Artley referred to the HR assessment, saying it was ongoing, according to a person on the call. Formerly known as CNN Money, CNN Business rebranded in 2018 with a greater focus on Silicon Valley and the intersection of politics, media, and tech. Intersection. I'll tell you this. It may be that CNN is getting eaten alive from the inside out. But this internal review might actually just be an internal inquisition led by the cultists that CNN hired. You let a wolf in the henhouse. They won't care, though. CNN never really was all that great anyway, but imagine being a skin suit of a news organization. That's basically CNN at this point. They're going to say, the findings of the assessment and what, if any, action CNN might take remain unclear. In some cases, media organizations like NPR and CBS have turned to outside law firms to independently investigate serious workplace issues. The internal review came just as former CNN anchor Brooke Baldwin, who left the network this month, discussed the environment within CNN's television unit in a podcast interview with Ms. Magazine, saying that the most influential and powerful anchors and executives at the network are men. Why is that a surprise to anyone? I'm going to say something controversial, but shouldn't be controversial. There's something known as the greater male variability hypothesis. It's a hypothesis, not even a theory. But what this means is that there is a general idea, which may or may not be true, again, hypothesis, that the bell curve for men in terms of talent and ability is wider and more varying than women. That means that if you have 100 men and 100 women, you're going to have 20 really dumb guys. You're going to have 20 really smart guys and 60 average guys. For women, you'll have 5 really dumb women, 5 really smart women, and 90 average women. That means there is a greater likelihood that top-level positions will go to men, period. assuming the hypothesis is true. More importantly, by all means, call out that the people at the top of the network are men. But have you considered just, I don't know, like trying to get the job? I won't stand for the excuse that sexism or racism or whatever holds people back, because if that is a consideration, then it should be just part of your plan. I don't see a circumstance in which you come out and say, I demand the entire company change its structure because I couldn't figure out how to actually gain power within this institution. Now, some of the left will argue it's impossible to do so if they're racist or sexist, and I just don't think that's true. I think there are ways to do it. And I guess, you know what, I'll tell you this. Maybe forcing CNN to do an internal audit of how they treat women is the only way to get it done. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 is a great thing. I'm very proud of America's accomplishments in this regard and how it helped my family. But it also means there's a vulnerability, a weakness. If you can be accused of breaking the law in some nebulous way that's hard to prove, your company will be, it'll cost you money and it'll be very difficult for you to deal with. So now people have found that easy vector towards gaining power, accusing a company of being racist bigots. And there you go. Which brings me to Mediaite. This week showed an obsession with popularity, and fear of the woke mob is killing journalism and society. Now, I briefly mentioned the Jeopardy thing, but this exemplifies everything about that article. This guy held up three fingers like a three-pointer thing, right? Not the OK sign. He didn't flash the OK sign. He did it because he had won 3 times, and he was going for a fourth. In the first one, when he won, he held up a 1, then he held up a 2, then he held up a 3. He didn't hold up the right 3, however, so they accused him of being a white supremacist. He had to issue a statement saying, no, I'm not, I'm sorry. There you go. The obsession with the popularity, fear of the woke mob, it is destroying everything. This is from John Ziegler from Mediaite, writing, the argument that journalism defined as an unbiased reporting of truth is effectively dead in the mainstream news media is now so strong that it is barely even worth bothering to make. However, the how and why of this devastating development are still very much in need of examination, and this week provided particular insight into a critical aspect of this conundrum. The actual truth of a controversial topic is almost never clear-cut and is very often not nearly as popular as a contrived narrative that appeals to the natural human desire to feel better about ourselves and our prior beliefs. Therefore, for real journalism to survive, those reporting on events must be willing and able to endure criticism and even risk getting fired for expressing facts and perspectives which do not necessarily appeal to the natural inclination of their audience. My friends, I get a lot of people on the left. They say, Tim's a grifter. And you probably heard me bring that up from time to time. And I love it. I did not seek out an audience of anybody. I didn't write down on a piece of paper, who's our audience? I want to make content targeting this group. I just make videos talking about my feelings from my room. Okay, to be fair, I'm in a big studio at this point because business is a booming. But what you need to understand is there are some people who see a crowd, be it leftist or Trump supporters. They'll walk up and start yelling things to rally the crowd to look at them. What I did was I found a soapbox, stood on it, started yelling stuff. People started crowding around and saying, hey, I really like what this guy in this soapbox is saying. And then some other guy with a really big soapbox, Joe Rogan, has me on. Then helps me gain a bunch of followers. Then I went on Steven Crowder's show. I went on Jimmy Dore's show. All of these things helped to make my channel grow. But it really is just I've been standing here for some time speaking, and people choose to come to me. Sometimes I'll then say something and the person will go, bah, and they'll walk away. Someone else will come up. And you can't really track your audience. This idea that people are doing things, for the most part, to pander to an audience is not true of most individuals, though it is true of some, but it's mostly true of corporations because corporations have more than one person at their company, like CNN. So CNN probably has an internal marketing department and says we need everyone to adhere to a certain point of view. That's the grift, the corporations. Sometimes the individuals, but typically not. They say, for several reasons mostly related to fundamental changes in technology, over the past generation, the desire of those reporting and commenting on the news to fulfill this requirement has melted away like a wax candle in a blast furnace. In short, massive media fragmentation has caused new outlets to devolve from broadcasting to narrowcasting to cult casting, and are now even heading towards a narrow cult casting business model. That's right. There are people who have become millionaires by making one kind of content. There are people who are millionaires because all they do is aggregate police brutality videos. Imagine living in a world where your news is nothing but watching cops brutally and mercilessly beat people. You'd think police were an evil organization going around hunting people. You'd believe crazy things. And many people do. Ziegler goes on to say, in other words, almost all media now is about preaching to a carefully chosen choir while making sure that nothing happens which might make them question their religion and consequently find a new cult leader to follow. With everyone in the media obsessed with TV ratings, traffic numbers, and Twitter followers, it cannot be overstated how much influence that has over what is allowed to be said. And just as importantly, how the fear of being attacked and canceled, especially on social media, prevents unpopular views from ever being expressed on major outlets. That's true. I want you all to watch other channels. I want everybody who's a subscriber to my channel to watch Steven Crowder, Jimmy Dore, David Pakman, Kyle Kalinske, Crystal Ball, left and right. Don't just take my word for it because I can only see so much. You need to find your sources and, figure out who you trust. And it's very, very difficult. Perhaps many of you just think I'm the best there is. And perhaps many of you think I'm pretty bad, but worth watching anyway. But you've got to have a different set of views. What I mean to say is you've got to view different sets of views, different points of views from other people. So I don't want a cult network of people who only believe me. And I got to be honest. I just happen to be lucky. You know why? It just so happens that my opinions as a milquetoast moderate fence sitter are mostly not bannable. Many of them are, and that's why we set up timcast.com and have the members only section so we can do things that YouTube doesn't want us to do. And I think that it's the island we're on, the cliffs are eroding, and eventually, they'll try and ban me because my opinions will eventually become bad as well. So we got to build our own networks. For the time being, there are a lot of people who have already been banned, and many of them thought their opinions were fairly mainstream conservative. There are people who have been banned for talking about things related to COVID, even when there are studies backing up what they say. Steven Crowder had a video taken down. They said it was for COVID misinformation when he was literally citing CDC statistics. I run the risk every day as well. So I think there are people on YouTube and good people who are going to say what needs to be said and say what their opinions are and attract people to those opinions. It's the corporate press, CNN, the New York Times, the Washington Post, who are desperate to maintain some kind of cohesive narrative so they can sell things to people. That's what you got to be careful of. He goes on to say the three topics on which this is a sad reality has been the most that this has been the most obvious are race, our reaction to COVID, and our views of Donald Trump. The past week provided voluminous evidence of that. Even as NBC News anchorman Lester Holt recently bragged, only one strategically crafted side of the story is now all that is incentivized. Obviously, the biggest story of the week was the conviction on all counts of former police officer Derek Chauvin in the trial of George Floyd. Despite the evidence for second-degree murder and that Chauvin's motivation was inherently racist, being exceedingly weak, in my opinion, even the prosecution thought it was a third-degree murder case. Based on the vast majority of one-sided media coverage of this tragedy, you would have thought anything less than a conviction on all counts would somehow be the equivalent of an endorsement of slavery. To simplify, it's an excellent point. The media was only giving one side of the narrative because they're scared of the woke mob and the cult has taken over. I hope you're paying attention. What we're seeing at CNN isn't some review, in my opinion. It's an inquisition. They're going to start ripping through CNN and purging the non-believers, who happen to be men, for the most part. That's what's happening. CNN, you reap what you have sown. The cult is gaining control of many of our cultural institutions and now our judicial institutions. The trial of Derek Chauvin was anything but a fair trial. The judge said that there's no venue where the jurors will be able to escape the riots and the press. Okay, if that's the case, then it should be said the charges should be dismissed with prejudice. That's what Andrew Branca said on the IRL show last night on Timcast IRL. Perhaps we need a constitutional amendment that says if at any point a judge declares a change of venue will not give the accused a fair trial, the charges must be dismissed outright and with prejudice, meaning they can't be brought back up. I'm pretty sure that's what it means. Otherwise, we just say, you can't have a fair trial, so you don't get one, to prison with ye. No, we can't function that way. But I guess the more I see these stories, the more I just think, you know what? Perhaps we're all losing. It's a great article. And he ends by saying, emblematic of this increasingly upside down world, one of the safest bets around is that if the goodness or trueness of something is based primarily on its perceived popularity, then it very likely is actually not good or true at all. This is especially the case when people are terrified to provide an alternative perspective, as is now happening on an all too regular basis. Journalism's dead. It's not like CNN was the bastion of great journalism, but, the cult is ripping through their organization, and we'll see how that ends up. It's already happened to the New York Times, and it probably happened to CNN a while ago, but now it's just going to get worse. And the stories are creepy. The judicial system is broken, as we've seen with the Chauvin trial. What makes you think you'll get a fair trial? What makes you think any of these other cops will get a fair trial? What makes you think the system is working at this point? They're breaking it on purpose because they've always hated it. It's still one of the best systems in the world. So what they're doing is a kind of black propaganda. Make people fear the system so that everyone loses confidence in it. See, the woke left already had no confidence in the system, be it the judicial system or, the establishment, the fourth estate, the press. So they're saying now, how do we destroy everything to rebuild our utopia? Now we need to go after everyone else's confidence. Now we just actually destroy these things and they have no faith in it. And thus things will just get worse. But hey, at least we can look forward to the absurdity that is these news organizations eating themselves alive. There may be a little bit of schadenfreude, but in the end, we'll all suffer because of it. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.